All right, everybody, welcome back to another installment of Behind the Nine. I am your host, Alan Gustafson, crew chief for the number 9 Napa Chevrolet. And our very special guest this week is a guy I've known his whole life, I think. Our baby, he's going to get mad at me probably for calling him our baby, but the newbie on the team, Mr. Cole Timm. How are you, Cole?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So Cole is the underneath mechanic on the 9. For those of you at home who don't really know what the underneath mechanic is we kind of split the car up into different groupings. And certainly we heard from Scott recently on the show. He does the interior, so Cole basically takes care of everything underneath the car: transmission, drive shaft, rear end housing, rear springs, gear coolers. What am I missing? Fuel cells, truck arms, brakes. What am I missing, Cole?
I think that's about it. You got most of it.
Yeah, so all that good stuff. So, yeah, so let's get right into it. Before we get into your job on the 9 currently, let's talk about your history. So, your father, you're a legacy HMS employee. Your dad has been working with me for my whole career at HMS. He's actually been there longer than I have. Um, a guy who I have huge respect for, who's contributed immensely to my success. And Murray, your dad has changed tires for me. He's been an Aerofab guy for years, and a good friend of mine. So yeah, so I think I've known you since you were very, very little, and you got into racing um, basically because your dad was, seriously involved with it all the time. So talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I forget what age I actually was. I think I was like 5, maybe 6 years old, and my dad was at over at a buddy's shop working on some cars at night, and I saw a go kart sit in the back corner. I was like, Dad, I want to drive a go kart. So I didn't really think I was going to go anywhere. I thought it might have been just an idea. How kids get, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. So it was kind of cool. Saw a go kart, really wanted to get into it, and we got a go kart when I was I think 7 years old. Started racing it when I was 8. Um, and I've been around racing my entire life. Like you said, my dad's been, I think he's been at Hendrick for 24 years now. So it's just been something I've always been around. So I got a go kart, ran that for a couple of years. Got a Bandolero, ran that at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the little racetrack there in the middle of the racetrack, or in the front straightaway, I should say. Ran that for a couple of years, and then jumped up to a late model. Ran a late model, a pro late model for, I think it was 2 years before jumping up into a super late model. Ran that for, I think it was 4 or 5 years, and then things were just. It's one of those things where you have a dream of being a race car driver, but the older you get, the more kind of realization you get that not everything's always going to work out. So kind of backed off the racing side, started working in racing a little bit, and here I am.
Yeah, you touched on your career, which I want to get into a little bit more in depth. You've had, I mean, you're a young guy, right? You're 21 years old,
Yep.
and you have you're a significantly accomplished race car driver already, and like you said, you've done this since you were really, really young, been involved in it for a long time. But let's talk about your driving career, because you've had a really successful driving career. The first I remember of it is you raced the champ karts with my oldest son when you were, like you said, maybe 9 or 10 years old, probably 8, 9 or 10 years old, winning all those races. So you basically went up through every level, and really had a lot of success at the late model level, which a lot of people are familiar with. You're racing against Chase, amongst other people. So let's talk about some of those big races you've won and some of the experiences you had racing against some of these big guys.
Yeah. So man, I've raced against a lot of people that everyone out there gets to watch on Sundays and even Saturdays. I've raced against Chase, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones. I've raced against Kyle Busch. I'm sure there's a ton of names that I'm missing, but I've raced against a lot of people. I've been lucky enough to beat them a couple times. But like I said, things don't always work out. So I've been lucky enough to run a lot of races in my life. I've been to some pretty cool ones. I've run the Snowball Derby once. I think I've run the All American 400. I think once or twice. I've been to a lot of races. Been to a lot of big races. it's been cool, just to it's cool to look back now and look at it all. Where before it was kind of like, you don't recognize what's going on. So now when you can turn around and look back at what you've done, where you've been, everything you've seen, and it's really cool just to kind of take that all in.
Yeah, which is, and you build a huge amount of experience for yourself, and you understand the sport from a lot of sides, which a lot of people don't get to see, and I think that's going to be valuable for you throughout your career. So I'm gonna pin you down, and you have to tell me your of your driving career, what's your biggest win? What was the one that stood out the most to you? Which one were you most proud of?
The biggest one was probably the 2015 Cars Tour opener. I think Bubba Pollard was there, Christopher Bell was there. Um, there was a bunch of big names there. I think there was 34 cars there, and I was, I think, 15 years old at the time, and I that was a brand new series. It was an inaugural race. It was a racetrack that I really liked to go to, so that's the only reason we went. We were
Where
like,
was it?
let's go do it. Let's go race. We go there. We're thinking we're probably not going to run inside the top five. We're like, we'll be lucky if we run top 10. Like, we'll be happy with that. Just the amount of the list of names of drivers that were there was pretty incredible. So we go there, and practice rains out all day Friday. So no one got to practice. So Saturday morning we unload. I think the first practice we're like fourth or fifth quick. So we were pretty happy with that. And then we go to the second practice and we mock qualifying run, and we end up finishing the first practice on top of the board. So that was really cool. And then we go to qualify, and we end up qualifying the pole by, I think it was just over 3/10 of a second. We got the pole by, so that was very humbling, very cool. At the time, meant a lot to me, just because, like I said, the names of drivers that were there was guys that have won big races all over the country. So anyway, we go into the race, and I think I rode around third place for a lot of the race. The last 50 laps, I decided it was time to go. Ran Christopher Bell down, passed him, and I think I beat him by just over half a straightaway. But it was cool. It was a lot of fun. Something I definitely didn't expect at all. It was just an awesome experience.
That is super cool. It's a great accomplishment. What track was it?
Southern National Motorsports Park.
Oh yeah, Kenley. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah, that's cool. And anytime you can beat Christopher Bell, you've done something right. I mean, he's an amazing talent, obviously. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, that's a great accomplishment. The passion, the drive. You're for people who don't know you. Of everybody that I know, you are racing is more a part of you and kind of entrenched in you than about anybody I know. It's you've grown up doing it your whole life. Your dad is super passionate about it. He races at home. He races at the shop. He's been involved with it. You're the same way. Very driven, very passionate about it. Yeah. So that desire, how do you does that desire burn as strongly for you driving the car as it does working on the car? Like talk about that passion, that drive. Is it just a competitive nature? Is it a love for the sport? What is it for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. If for those that know that I'm very competitive about everything I do, whether we're playing a video game or racing on the racetrack. I want to be the best. I want to win. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Like you said, I've been in the sport my entire life. It's kind of the only thing that I know. So it's something that I want to be the best at. I want to know how to do everything. So it's it's kind of, I guess, hard to describe. Like you have a feeling, or you get into something and you want to be good at it. You don't want to be that guy that no one fears, I guess. So racing for me is the best way for me to kind of show myself, show my competitive side. And it's the same for everyone. I think a lot of people like to be, or a lot of people are competitive that are in the sport, whether it's drivers, crew members. It doesn't matter. I think everyone, there's a lot of people that have a competitive nature, but for me, it's just something that I've always had. I've always had a strong passion for the sport. I remember, I forget when it was, years and years and years ago. I can remember back when I was a little kid sitting on the couch watching the cup races, and seeing my dad change tires for you guys when Kyle was driving and whatnot. So it's just something I've always been a part of and something I've always wanted to be good at.
Describe your job a little bit, things you like, things that may be difficult, just that experience of what you have to do, and you know, the technical aspect of it, the pressure that comes up in happy hour when you got to make a change really quick, or you know, Tony made a great analogy when he was on, or not analogy, but he just said like the first 40 laps for the race, he basically holds his breath to make sure there's not going to be any failure, and then you know, he gets kind of comfortable past that. So talk people through your job, what you do, you know, um, just the odds and ends.
Yeah, so it's fairly easy to start the weekend for me, as I think it is for everyone. Kind of go through tech. Everything's kind of laid back. You know, you go through, you get back to your garage, go to scales, get some numbers and whatnot, and then you start getting ready for practice. And that's when things get a little bit more intense. You know, you start getting worried about things because, you know, that car, we just spent the week working on it at the shop. So now anything that was wrong or that didn't get done, it's your fault. And it puts a lot of pressure and weight on your shoulders because everyone knows what your position of the car is. So if something happens in that spot of the car, it's like everyone just turns and looks at you and you're like, uh so it's not too bad. Happy hour in practice, all that stuff is pretty relaxed for me. Every now and then I'll have to do some sleeve changes or whatever, and get after it when I can. But it's overall not too bad. As far as worrying about stuff, I think that, you know, if anything happens in that area or in that time frame, it gives me a chance to, you know, at least try to fix it as long as something, you know, detrimental doesn't happen. But when the race starts, that's when things get a little more intense. You know, you definitely feel the weight in your shoulders. You know, you did everything right that week. You know, all through the week, the weekend, everything that's led up to this point. You know, you're content with how everything went, and now you're sitting there on pit road watching the cars go around, and you're like, you're running back everything through your mind, thinking, you know, what can go wrong, what can go wrong, what can go wrong. So I think at a certain point, you kind of let that go, and you're like, all right, well, you know, whatever happens, happens, and you know, nothing's happened yet, so it should be fine. But I think there's always going to be that little thought in the back of your head, like, man, this something could always go wrong. One thing that actually brings back a memory was when we were in New Hampshire last year, which I'm sure a lot of people remember. I certainly will for a long time. When we went through three cars with Alex, um, so that was a weekend where I forget, I don't even remember how the whole weekend went. Everything ran together. It was a hard weekend on everyone just because there was a lot of work put into it in a short amount of time. So we went through our first car, had that issue in qualifying with the drive shaft, had our wreck with our second car, had to get a third car out. We started working on the third car. And at that point, you know, we get the car done, get it through tech, we get on the grid on Sunday morning, and you're like trying to think back at everything, making sure you got everything done, but you're not exactly sure because there's so much disasterness that's happened within the past 48 hours that you start thinking about something, and then you're like, well, maybe that was the other car. There was so much stuff that it was bizarre. So it was that whole race. It was, you know, I was sitting there just wondering when something was going to go wrong.
Yeah, there's thrashes like you're describing at the moment in time. You feel like you're covering everything possible, and you're running every scenario through your head, and then you have a little bit of opportunity to stop and take time to reflect, and you're like, oh, well, this, well, that, well, this, and yeah, it makes it difficult. And usually in a normal weekend, right, you have those breaks in between to absorb that information and kind of process it and then move forward. And when you get those mad thrashes like that, you don't. And that thrash you're describing was crazy. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen very few circumstances like that, and that one was certainly a tough one. But you know, you'll be better for that experience. So yeah, that's great stuff. So I guess the last thing I'm going to touch on here, can't go without saying your mom and dad are from Canada. So I didn't know this. I mean, I know your mom and dad are from Canada. I knew that. You're a hockey fan. So tell me about that. You're a big hockey fan. Like, what team do you like? Let's hear what's behind this hockey fan.
So I'm not like a raging hockey fan. I do like to watch it. When we go to certain areas like Phoenix, we stay close to the hockey arena there, so I'll try to catch a game when we go there. Vegas, I haven't actually been to a game there yet, but I'd like to one of the times that we're there.
Yeah, it's
Actually crossed off the Rogers Center, or I think it's the Rogers Center up in Toronto for the Maple Leafs over the Christmas break. I was able to go to one of those games, so I think it's something I've always just liked. I don't know if it's the Canadian side that maybe has a little twist on me there, but I like to go to games in the off season here in Raleigh. I'll go to some games, but I like the Hurricanes, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, like the Golden Knights out in Vegas. There's not necessarily a particular team that I cheer for. I just like to kind of go to games, and another thing is I like to go to different venues. So whenever we're out, I try to go if there's a hockey game or something within that area when we're at a race. I try to cross a new thing off my list. Go see something new.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to go do new things and take advantage of all the different places we go. So good for you. So yeah, fantastic, Cole. Thanks for coming on. Super good job, man. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good to hear from you. I'm sure the fans enjoyed that. I know I did. So yeah, thanks to all the fans for watching us and checking us out. And yeah, give us some likes, some thumbs up, some shares, some views, all that good stuff. So yeah, thanks for joining in. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Cole.
Yeah, we'll see you.